Welcome to the Sheep, Goat, Cervid, and Equine Cooperative Agreement training. The overall goals of the Sheep and Goat Health Program are to eradicate classical scrapie from the sheep and goat population in the United States and document that freedom by sampling at least 30,000 animals per year, to assure sheep and goats are officially identified, which would allow traceability in the event a case of scrapie or other disease of concern is confirmed, and to support the prevention, reporting, and control of small ruminant, program, foreign, and emerging diseases that are of economic and/or public health significance. Sheep and goat surveillance goals are of the utmost importance for the scrapie program. These goals include the investigation and sampling of all sheep and goat scrapie suspects, maintaining the current and adding new regulatory scrapie slaughter surveillance sites so that we can collect the targeted animals at slaughter. The targeted animals would include all sheep and goats from 18 months to 72 months of age, as evidenced by examination of the teeth, and this is regardless of traceability, which is different from the past years. The third goal was to increase the surveillance of sheep and goats over 18 months of age that are found dead on farms, that are found dead at livestock auctions or other markets, and those that are presented to veterinary diagnostic labs or veterinary clinics. For samples that are collected at RSS sites, agreement funding can be used to pay state personnel salaries to collect and submit these samples. There are a number of RSS sites that perform work such as removing heads and storing these for collection. The cooperative agreement funding is not used to pay the RSS site. These sites are paid through statement of work agreements. There are statement of work templates that have been created for RSS sites, diagnostic laboratories and markets, and other concentration points, and these are available on our external sheep and goat SharePoint site. Sheep and goat scrapie surveillance also includes on-farm necropsy submissions. Cooperative agreement funds can be used for salaries of state personnel to collect and submit necropsy samples from scrapie suspects or age-eligible sheep and goats found dead on farms, found dead at livestock markets, or those submitted to diagnostic labs for necropsy. States that have difficulty meeting their minimums may have funding approved for necropsies of targeted animals at diagnostic labs, provided that the suitable samples are also submitted for scrapie testing. Testing costs and sample collection supplies should not be included in this cooperative agreement request, as USDA has contracts with non-labs for the testing, and NVSL can provide the supplies. For states that have difficulty meeting their minimum numbers, they may be approved to conduct live animal testing. Cooperative agreement funds may be used for salaries of state personnel who collect rectal biopsies of producer animals or animals at markets. For sheep, this would include concurrent collection of blood samples for genotyping, as well as the tissue samples of the rectal biopsy. For goats, rectal biopsies are the only requirement. If funding is used for sheep and goat scrapie surveillance, quarterly reports are required. The quarterly reports must contain the type and number of samples collected through the cooperative agreement and where they were collected, the type of collector collecting the samples, for example, state VMO, state HT, a contractor, etc., and any actions taken to increase collections, such as signing up new collection sites. There are certain scrapie program reports that are needed. So states are asked to provide data needed to complete the state's scrapie identification compliance report, either to the ABIC or the designated scrapie epidemiologist. This is on a quarterly basis. The example of these reports are available from your DSE or your state. The reports are due the month following the end of each quarter. The other report that's required, and that's on an annual basis, is the application for consistent state classification renewal. This is the VS Form 524. It must be completed and signed by the ABIC and state veterinarian and submitted by January 15th of each year. This slide contains an example of a table that can be used to report RSS surveillance activities. This slide contains an example of a table that can be used to report non-RSS scrapie surveillance activities. The preparedness and response objectives are to detect, respond, and contain occurrences of regulatory diseases, foreign animal diseases, or emerging diseases in sheep, goats, cervids, or equine species. Preparedness and response activities may include conducting epidemiologic investigations in accordance with animal health program regulations and program standards. These investigations may be for a program, foreign diseases, and emerging diseases as requested by veterinary services. They also would include conducting disease response activities such as cleanup, traceback investigations, post-exposure monitoring, testing, and disposal of high-risk animals, herds, and flocks. Preparedness and response objectives also include assigning flock identification numbers and increasing the number of flocks listed in the Scrapie National Database. The objectives include processing sheep and goat tag orders. The use of Umbrella Cooperative Agreement funding is not appropriate under certain circumstances. These include states that routinely have CWD activities. These states should apply for and utilize the specific CWD Cooperative Agreement funding. In addition, official sheep and goat ear tags are provided by USDA through contracts. Hence, ear tags, implants, or taggers may not be purchased through these agreements unless approved by the National Scrapie Program Coordinator. Education and outreach activities should be used to increase ID and record-keeping compliance for sheep and goats, reporting and submission of found dead mature sheep and goats for Scrapie testing, producer awareness of how to use genotyping and other strategies to prevent Scrapie introduction, and reporting and submission of samples from animals exhibiting clinical signs suggestive of a program, foreign, or emerging disease. Education and outreach goals should include providing education and outreach materials at fairs, shows, auctions, sales, and other venues, hosting outreach events, especially for small backyard owners, and presenting information at stakeholder and veterinary meetings. The quarterly performance reports for outreach and education should describe in narrative or a table form the sheep, goat, cervid, equine specific education and outreach activities conducted and include the event name and location, the organization holding the event, a description of the audience and number of stakeholders reached, the content of the educational materials, the method used for outreach, education, and if the event was a training, please list the name, organization providing the training, the purpose of attending, who attended, the location and outcome, and if available, please attach a copy of the agenda. Cooperative agreement funding may be available to provide personnel with opportunities for training and other travel that directly supports program goals. Examples include travel to USAHA and other conferences that are essential for supporting the sheep, goat, cervid, and equine health programs, training for designated Scrapie epidemiologists that are state employees to help maintain their proficiency, and training to collect Scrapie samples. It is important to note if travel is being funded across programs, please indicate the estimated percentage provided by the sheep, goat, cervid, equine funding.